There'll be a quiz on this later.
Okay.
One thing I know that frustrates CPR's climate editor is the inconsistency in snowfall data. Some of the researchers he's talked to acknowledge how hard it can be to analyze snowfall changes because we could be capturing information from more small storms than we used to. How has snowfall measurement changed over the years?
It still is surprisingly simple how we do it. We take a stick out there onto a flat spot and stick it into the ground and take a whole bunch of measurements around that spot and take the average out. Where it gets difficult to do is if it's blowing, that's very hard to measure snow accurately. Also, if we have a storm like this one that it rained a lot more, central Denver up toward Fort Collins, it didn't very much snow at all. Whereas I had in southeast Aurora 20 inches, and my son, who lives in northwest Elbert County, just south of County Line Road, had 30 inches of snow. So that's over a relatively small area. We can have a huge difference.
Well, the cold has certainly arrived. 15 degrees in Denver Wednesday morning. There were some frigid winds leading up to that. I was curious if there's anything special about fall and winter winds here versus like the gusts that drive summer wildfires.
Our big winter winds are two types. There's the Bora wind, B-O-R-A, and the Chinook. The Chinook is more familiar to us. That's that warm down-sloping wind that gives you 50 and 60 degree days in Boulder in January. The Bora is a cold down-sloping wind, and it usually comes in like it did on Tuesday this week. We had those really strong, cold winds, and that comes in behind a strong low-pressure system. We had one that just missed us on Tuesday, and that dumped a whole lot of rain from Texas across Oklahoma into Kansas and Missouri, but that storm just tracked far enough east that we didn't get much moisture here in Colorado. But we did get a lot of cold wind.
I'm just nerding out this time because now I've looked up Bora. Comes from the ancient Greek word boreas, meaning northern. Wow. Okay.
You're going to miss me.
I'm going to miss you so much when you retire at the end of this year, Mike Nelson. What's the Turkey Day forecast?
Mountains should be in pretty good shape. They're going to start to pick up a period of relatively light to moderate snow starting Sunday. They'll likely continue through Wednesday. So if you have early season ski plans, it should be some pretty good snow for this time in the ski year. And around here, I always like a Turkey Day that's a little cloudy and a little cold. I think it's festive that way. Throw a touch of snow in there. I will be working on TV on Thanksgiving, the last holiday that I will work in my 48-year weather career. But they let me do it from home this year, so I'm broadcasting from my basement.
And we'll see like the cranberry stains on your shirt, maybe.
Probably.
Probably, yeah.
Look close, yeah. Do tune in. I'm sure you won't be watching anything except my weather, not a football game or anything like that.
I note that Steamboat is opening this week. You mentioned skiing. A warming planet is not political. More carbon means more heat trapped. But addressing global warming certainly gets political. And Mike, Americans have reelected a president who does not prioritize climate action. What are your fears and also what are your hopes heading into the next 4 years?
My fear would be we're not going to get as much done as we need to get done because the carbon dioxide we're putting in the atmosphere, we're adding 100 million tons a day, and that is trapping heat and it is warming the planet, will stay there for 1,000 years. That means we are locking this warming in for generations to come. And the quicker we stop adding more carbon to the atmosphere, the better off we will be. And I don't know how much progress we'll make on that. But where I am optimistic is you're reading about this all the time, the massive increase in electricity that we're going to need because of AI, crypto, and data centers. We're talking about maybe 25 gigawatts more electricity in the United States in the next 5 years. That's 25 nuclear reactors worth of electricity in the next 5 years. And we can get a long ways onto this. We can do it with bipartisan effort if we improve the transmission system. Basically, we need the equivalent of the Transcontinental Railroad or the interstate highway system, but it needs to be for electrical transmission. Basically, a super grid all across the United States that would allow us to quickly and efficiently move electricity from where it is produced to where it is needed. This should be a project that both sides of the aisle could get behind. No matter how the electricity is produced, we're going to need a lot more of it. We have to be able to move it around very quickly and efficiently.
You know, I think about the fact that there are nominees now for the next Trump administration, certainly who have deep ties to fossil fuels. But, you know, I think of someone like an Elon Musk who has helped democratize the electric car. I think about the tech connections, the folks who would be most interested in the energy supply for crypto, etc. And, you know, the picture is complicated, to say the least. Fossil fuels certainly are subsidized mightily. But if subsidies were to shrink or disappear for renewables, do you think they're ingrained enough in our economy that they become inevitable to some extent?
Solar power has become the cheapest form of energy, and battery storage is declining in cost at a dramatic rate. It takes about 5 acres of solar panels to produce a megawatt of energy. And so just in the United States alone, we have 15 million acres of what are called brownfield. And what that is previously developed land. This is not pristine desert or anything like this. This is areas that, you know, for whatever reason, they're not good for growing things anymore. But they could grow electricity if you put solar panels on there. Just 1 million acres of solar panels would produce about 200 gigawatts of power per year. And the electricity, the value of that electricity would be between 30 and 50 billion dollars a year. It's staggering how much money we could make from farming electricity. And we could rejuvenate many areas, especially in the central part of the United States, by growing solar energy. Along with growing crops, we're not taking perfect cropland away from corn farmers in Iowa or Illinois. We could do all of this if we have the transmission system to move it. If you have a beautiful crop of wheat, but no way to get it to market by either train or truck, it's not worth anything. We can have a fabulous crop of electricity if we build the infrastructure to get that electricity to market.
So you're retiring from television. When does the announcement come that you're running for office, Mike?
Believe me, there's been some discussion about that. You're right, honestly, I don't know. I've kind of promised myself that when I retire from TV, I'm going to take about 3 months and not commit to anything. I've been doing this for 48 years, and I have other interests as far as whether I want to run for office or do anything like that. I'm going to think about it for a little while. But we have a lot of things we can fix, and we are very inventive people if we can just come to some type of an agreement from both sides of the aisle. And honestly, the power grid is so important. Money and power. I think those are things that both sides of the aisle kind of think are not necessarily a bad thing. We need them.
Mike Nelson has not ruled out a run for office. You heard it here first on Colorado Matters. Hey, thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you in December as your swan song.
Looking forward to it, Ryan. It's always a pleasure. Have a great day, everybody.
Mike Nelson is chief meteorologist at Denver 7. We chat monthly about Colorado's climate and weather. And Colorado Matters continues in just a bit with a jazz legend still kicking at 104. I'm Ryan Warner with CPR News and KRCC.
I'm Mike Lang with these headlines. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has released 5 potential options for how to manage the Colorado River when current rules expire in 2026. Some would require major water cuts from states, including Colorado, when water levels are low. 3 of the options account for unused water allocated to tribal nations. Final guidelines must be in place by August of 2026. I-70 roadwork at Vail Pass is pausing for the winter. The Colorado Department of Transportation is in the middle of a $300 million project that includes a wider roadway and new bridges. Both existing lanes in each direction will stay open until work resumes next spring. Parts of Colorado could have snow for Thanksgiving. The National Weather Service says mountain areas in western Colorado could see that snow starting to fall on Monday, and more snow to follow Tuesday and Wednesday, and in the northwest part of the state. For today,
Did you lock the door?
sunny across Colorado, Denver, and Colorado Springs in the 60s. This is CPR News on KRCC.
Want to know where to start in classical music? Join me, Jesse Jacobs, exploring the most beloved music of the last few centuries every Saturday afternoon. Essential Saturdays on CPR Classical.
Support CPR and reduce your tax bill at the same time through a qualified charitable distribution. It's an easy way to do good for yourself and your community. Contact your IRA administrator and learn more about it at CPR.org.
Support comes from the Art Center of Western Colorado with the Holiday Fine Arts and Craft Fair, November 22nd through 23rd. This juried art fair is a fundraiser to benefit the Art Center. Learn more at gjartcenter.org.
It's Colorado Matters from CPR News. I'm Ryan Warner.
And I'm Andrea Dukakis. Musician Charlie Burrell is 104 years old. You heard that, 104.
There's a guy in the Philippines that's 179 who lives out in the hills.
We've been profiling Colorado centenarians as part of our series Aging Matters. And Charlie Burrell tops the list as the oldest of the bunch. He's also the most musical. Burrell's an icon of music, both classical and jazz. Early on, Burrell was drawn to classical music. When he was 12, a teacher introduced him to what would become his instrument of choice.
He took me to the music room and pointed to that thing. And I looked over, it was a big bass violin.
The only problem was the instrument was bigger than Burrell. He was 4'10" at the time.
I understand two Coca-Cola
Just
bottles.
looking for 4th
Reached the top of the instrument.
But that started a love affair with the bass violin.
I think it's been the most important role in my whole very life because that's all I thought about since the time I was 12 years old.
I can't one do.
Every day since then, I just think about what I enjoyed every second of it.
What about Peter?
After discovering the bass violin, Burrell
Did you see
heard
the
San Francisco
very end of
Orchestra
the,
playing Tchaikovsky's Fourth
Wanderlust
Symphony on the radio,
video?
conducted by
watched
Pierre
any of
Monteux. Burrell was awestruck.
They're hiking up the mountain in 4 or 5 feet of snow to complete that stupid mountain. Wondering if they're going to make it over or not.
Burrell became obsessed with the idea of one day playing under
I
Monteux.
can't believe they did that. That was just nuts, but
he joined what
what
was
else
then
are you gonna
the
do? The
Denver
trail was
Symphony,
closed.
becoming the first
You had to
Black
go over that
American
way.
member of the
And
U.S.
Mrs. San
Orchestra.
Juan's.
Burrell
I
had
would
4
want to
kids,
say me.
and to make ends meet, he took on other
There's
jobs.
Herbie.
He worked as a plumber and an auto worker, and he spent one hot summer painting linseed oil on all of the seats at Red Rocks Amphitheater.
And that was my job, to resurrect those seats. Took me over 3 months to paint that with linseed oil.
Sometimes after a grueling day in the hot sun at Red Rocks, Burrell would have to change clothes and head on stage to play a concert. He says the acoustics at Red Rocks are unmatched.
The best in the world. You can't believe it because Mother Nature did it. We didn't do a thing to it. Mother Nature did the whole thing.
Tell me about the kind of music you like to play. Do you have a favorite type?
Yes, very favorite. Each one all types of music.
Well, maybe not all types.
I don't particularly like rock and roll, but whiskey and lots of them. I got good.
wondered how fast he was going to
Did
get
a
through that
true
fight.
history of playing under Pierre Monteux. After 10 years with the Denver Symphony, he headed to San Francisco and joined that orchestra for several years. He proved equally gifted as a jazz musician, playing on stage with greats like Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday. Here's Burrell recording from back in the day at the Lakeside Amusement Park Jazz Club. And as for Burrell's philosophy of how to live life to the fullest, he has this to say.
He ready, didn't he?
Right way before he even got there.
Yeah, no, he was 5 comics behind you.
Colorado music icon Charlie
He
Burrell.
ran it.
He turned 104 years old.
I guess he's not going to have that job this long.
The profile from CPR's Andrea Dukakis. Read the stories of other Colorado centenarians at cpr.org/aging matters. And we'll be right back to remember a man and his castle. This is Colorado Matters for CPRs.
Aging Matters is made possible in part by the support of Select Health. The political rehabilitation of William McKinley, an incoming White House advisor saying if you just kicked out everyone whose social security number ends in an odd number, you'd save the program. A cabinet of TV stars. Heather Fox Richardson says she didn't really have any of these things on her 2024 bingo card, but the famed historian joins us to draw from the past to make sense of the future. That's on the next On Point. Listen at 10 on CPR News and KRCC and on the Colorado Public.
wasn't paying attention. I was on my phone.
Well, that's a monster truck.
Yeah.
Huh?
Making that lady move because she's in her parking spot.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Detailing his truck.
Hmm?
The guy's detailing his truck.
Uh-huh. Looks like he's got the rubber that's something wrong with it.
He's got a rag that he was wiping it all down with. He's working on the front side when the first came out. Or the front door.
That's childish making her make move.
Oh, he's got some of those new. I want some of those for this. Or just one, really, for this door. So when it rains, it doesn't come inside.
where she was.
I thought she was one you were talking to, saying she's here because her machine started leaking.
Mm-hmm. She probably just needed to wash him to go home, throw him in the dryer.
Mm-hmm. This place is kind of dead compared to normal Fridays.
Different time.
Not really. We're usually leaving about this time, and it's pretty fucking busy.
Are you hungry?
Whenever can we go?
Yeah.
Socialism. And with that, which starts in about 1871, by 1874, there's a real effort to suppress the voting in the American South of Black Americans and also poor whites. And from that, we get the rise of the one-party state throughout the American South. From about 1874, people usually look at the election of 1876, but that's only the last 3 states that have not yet given into what they call redemption. And that lasts, of course, until 1965 with the Voting Rights Act, when there is a move across the American South and across the country to make sure that everybody in America has at least the right to vote, even though it's very hard for them still to do so.
Yeah. Well, and that one party at that time was the Democrat.
That's correct. Yes, and it was not a complete reversal of the idea of anybody having any say in the South. There are splinter parties throughout the late 19th century that continue to have effects in elections, but the thing that looks to me like the present at a national level is that there is this attempt to establish a one-party state that represents only a small minority of the American South. And the idea is that although elections are always held, that there will only be one party who wins them. And that party is in that period the Democrats. But one of the things that we tend to do when we look at that period of Reconstruction in the early 20th century is to look at how badly people of color and Black Americans are treated in the American South and in the American West, which is 1,000% true. But most people who look at that era also don't realize that white Americans are actually terribly treated unless they are part of the cabal in their particular state or community that's running everything.
Yeah.
So that lack of democracy is a huge problem for everybody.
He's for what? So for whatever. Really needs.
More lotto ticket?
No. I didn't know what we needed. I forgot what they were. She said so nice, so I left.
Sitting across from me at the On Point table, she's the author of the very well-known Substack newsletter, Letters from an American. Her most recent book is Democracy, Notes on the State of America. She's also a professor of history at Boston College, and I'm just trying to pick her brain for some perspective on this moment in American history. So here's another question, Heather, that I've always wanted to ask you, and that is, I'm sure you're familiar with who first made this, but there's this interesting sort of plot in which economic conservatism to economic progressivism is on one axis of this map, and then social conservatism to social progressivism is the other axis, right? It's separated into four. So if you're like economically progressive and socially progressive, that makes you just a super duper Democrat. Obviously, the other end of the spectrum makes you very, very conservative Republican. But the one quadrant that I think some folks are saying, hey, Donald Trump really zeroed in on, especially in 2016 in terms of campaigning, was the economically progressive, the socially conservative voters out there, which is an interesting combination in America. First of all, who do you think those folks are? And is that the group you think that Trump capitalized on? And have they always been a part of the American culture?
So I think it's really important to separate Donald Trump from 2016 out from Donald Trump in 2024. There's been an 8-year difference. He's a very different candidate. He's a very different man. He's mentally not nearly as acute as he was in 2016, and that even was a step down from where he was in the 1980s. And you can see this if you look at interviews he's done. He used to, in the 80s, he was sharp, he was funny, and he was quite good, and that's just not who we saw in 2016 or in 2024. But there's been a real change in the meaning, I think, of Trumpism. That is, in 2016, he really brought an economic message to a lot of people who were really disillusioned with the previous 40 years of neoliberalism, which had moved like $50 trillion from the bottom 90% of Americans up to the top 1% of Americans. And he was saying, listen, you got a raw deal, and I'm going to fix it. Now, he didn't do that when he got into office. He gave us the 2017 tax cuts and deregulation. But he also did something really interesting in 2017, and that was with the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. He took the supporters that had come along with him, based, I think, on pretty traditional Republican messaging, the idea that, America would be great if only it weren't for those other people. And that was a language that the Republicans had been embracing since the 1980s, the idea that black Americans, brown Americans, women who wanted to work outside the home were all anti-American because they wanted some kind of a handout. Again, language that looks very much like the same thing we saw in the 1870s in the American South, and that went under the American North. And in 2017, after the Unite the Right rally, he ceased to use those people as his voters and began to use them as a movement that would propel him to a different kind of presidency than previous Republicans had. And it's really interesting if you look at what he actually did in his first year in 2016. He tries to be a pretty normal president. And then there's this really weird period after the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally where he kind of goes quiet. That's when we get the the genius. I'm the
Oh yeah, very stable genius.
very stable genius language, and he stops holding events. He had held events before that. He stops holding events, and then we get the emergence of the 2019-2020 president, who seems very much trying simply to get reelected and then to destroy his enemies. And then of course we get the period from 20 to 2024, where he is really deliberately trying to tear down the Biden administration and also the pieces of American democracy that he felt had persecuted him. So now in 2024, when he ran for office, he was not any longer, I think, trying to serve the old Republican language, which I think you're seeing now in people like John Thune, the new Senate Majority Leader from South Dakota. He instead was bringing in a new right-wing language that by the time he was running in 2024 had become fascism. And the base that gravitated toward that, I think, is there's some overlap with 2016, but he lost a lot of the 2016 economic voters who were like, we actually wanted something economic. We're not in with the neo-Nazis, but he picked up a lot.
I was wondering if they did reloadable cards anymore. I hadn't seen them in the Maverick for a long time, ever since they changed over.
I'm just gonna throw it out. I don't have too many problems with it.
Thanks for lunch, baby.
I just didn't want you to get my $3.
'29th Annual Customer Appreciation Day is conveniently Black Friday, huh?
So when they list the house, they send somebody down there, don't they? Then they have to appraise it, so they have to get into it. So they probably have keys by now.
I don't know. He may have to be there.
Huh?
I don't know. I never sold a house.
No, neither have I. Yeah, I sold a couple of them. I just wasn't interested in it.
Imagine they would want to get inside because they want to take pictures, right?
Mm-hmm. So Hill & Holmes has already been notified that I'm selling it. Otherwise, they would have stopped the sale, right? Huh?
I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what kind of contract there is or anything like that.
They were just managers.
Yeah, but there's renters in there. They might be on a lease.
If they are on a lease, I could legally fire them. If I have one to sell a house, it's my legal house. It's not theirs. Or just one game too long of a lease. Sure.
I'm just saying you may have to wait till the lease runs out before you can.
I'm not going to wait 10 years to sell that house. I'm going to sell that right underneath them anyway.
I'm sure they don't have a 10-year lease. Most people do 6 months. Well, they sure did butcher the fuck out of those trees.
Huh?
Said, wow, they sure did butcher the fuck out of all those trees.
Yeah.